I've used the same brass key for more than 30 years. It's smooth now, its edges worn down from a lifetime of opening one door, the front door of my home in Worthington, Ohio. This morning, that key turned cold in my hand. When I slid it into the lock, it stopped halfway, stiff and unyielding, as if the house itself no longer recognized me. I jiggled it again, a nervous laugh escaping before the chill of confusion sank in. Maybe I'd grabbed the wrong key? No. I knew that key like the lines on my own palm. My fingers trembled as I tried once more, slower this time. But the lock didn't move. Behind the glass panel, I could see the faint reflection of my gray hair, my thin coat buttoned too high against the April wind. And for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger on my own porch. Then the door clicked. It opened from the inside, not because of me, but because someone else had decided to unlock it. My daughter-in-law, Sloane, stood there in her robe. Holding a cup of coffee like this was just another calm morning. Her expression barely shifted when she saw me. "Oh, Nora," she said flatly. "You shouldn't have come without calling first." Her words were light, but something in her tone sliced through me. "I live here," I managed, my voice thin. She took a slow sip and stepped aside just enough for me to see behind her. The living room looked different. My floral curtains were gone. The armchair where I used to read every evening had vanished. The walls, once covered with family pictures, were stripped bare except for a single abstract canvas that didn't belong to me. Sloane's eyes followed mine. "Ethan and I made some updates. We're taking care of things now." That sentence, "we're taking care of things now," hit harder than the locked door. "Where's Ethan?" I asked, my throat dry. "He's at work," she answered, closing the door halfway between us. "He agrees this arrangement is best. The house is under new management. So to speak, you'll be more comfortable somewhere smaller, right?" The door began to move toward its frame, slow but certain, and I instinctively placed my hand against it before it could close. My heart thudded so loud I could hear it in my ears. "Did you change the locks?" I whispered. Sloane didn't blink. "Yes, we needed better security." The word security stung like an insult. The woman I'd welcomed into my family, who once asked me for my lasagna recipe, who laughed on this very porch last Christmas, was standing there, calm and sure, telling me I didn't belong. I lowered my hand. The wind carried the smell of wet grass and fresh paint, and I suddenly understood what had changed. The house wasn't mine anymore, not in her eyes. I stepped back onto the porch, the brass key still warm in my palm, useless now, somewhere behind the closed door. I could hear the faint creak of my rocking chair, the one I used every night, moving back and forth as if someone else had taken my place. And that was the moment I realized a lock isn't just metal, it's power. And someone had decided I didn't deserve it anymore. A week before the locks changed, everything still looked ordinary, at least from the outside. I remember standing in the kitchen, sunlight pooling across the old oak floors, thinking how quiet the house had become since Ethan and Sloane moved in. I'd convinced myself that letting them stay while they saved for their own place was a good idea. It felt right at first. Family helping family. That's what I was raised to believe. Sloane would hum while making her smoothies every morning, the blender roaring like a small engine. She called me Mom Nora, and I liked it more than I admitted. Ethan seemed happy, lighter than he'd been in years. They'd offered to handle a few things around the house: utilities, maintenance, the mail. I didn't mind. I'd spent 40 years keeping this place afloat, from fixing gutters to painting the porch myself. Letting them take a little responsibility seemed fair, but lately, Small things had started to feel off. It began with the mail. I stopped seeing the bills. When I asked, Sloan smiled and said, "Oh, I set everything to paperless. Mom Nora. Easier that way." Then there was the fence notice from the HOA, something about replacing the panels. Sloan handled the call before I could. "We'll get quotes," she said, waving her manicured hand like she was the new homeowner. At dinner one evening, she mentioned how the market is hot right now and how a house this size could fetch $500,000 easy. She said it casually, slicing her chicken like she wasn't gauging my reaction. Ethan nodded without looking at me. "That's more than it's ever been worth," I said, trying to keep my tone even. Sloan smiled. "Exactly. Timing is everything." It was meant to sound harmless, but something about her tone carried the slick polish of someone rehearsing a pitch. I let it pass that night, but my thoughts kept circling back. I began noticing how often Sloan called the house hers when talking to her friends on speakerphone. "We're fixing up our place," she'd say, laughing. Our place. I brushed it off as enthusiasm until the next Sunday. We were sitting at the diner on Main Street, the same booth Ethan used to beg for pancakes in when he was 10. The waitress, Judy, refilled our coffee and called me Hun, like always. Sloan barely looked up from her phone. "Mom," Ethan said finally, clearing his throat. "Sloan and I have been thinking. Maybe it's time you took it easy. The house feels like a lot for you." "It's just a house." "Ethan," I said, "it doesn't ask much of me." He shifted in his seat. "Yeah, but the upkeep, the taxes." Sloan cut in smoothly. "We could manage it better. You could stay with my sister for a bit, just until things settle." The fork slipped from my hand, clinking against the plate. "Your sister lives in Indiana," I said. "It's peaceful there," Sloan replied, still scrolling. I stared at Ethan. "Is that what you want?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped to his coffee, swirling it like the answer might be there. Judy brought the check and set it between us. I reached for it automatically, out of habit, but Sloan's hand landed on top of mine. Her nails were perfect, pale pink, steady. "I've got it," she said. "You can relax." It should have been kind. Instead, it felt like she'd just closed a small door I hadn't noticed before. That night, as I folded the receipts in my purse, I noticed my name wasn't on any of the recent utility emails, only Sloan's. The realization left a pit in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Something was shifting beneath my feet, slowly but surely, and I couldn't tell yet if I was losing balance or being pushed. Part 2. The cracks begin to show. 560 words. When I got back from visiting my old friend May in Cincinnati, I noticed the scent before I saw anything else. The house smelled like lemon polish and paint thinner. Too clean, too foreign. My steps echoed differently against the floorboards. It didn't sound like home anymore. I stopped in the doorway, suitcase still in hand, staring at the living room. The curtains were gone, replaced with sheer white panels that looked straight out of a real estate brochure. My family photos, the ones that had lined the mantel for decades, were missing. The wall was bare except for one framed print of a city skyline I didn't recognize. "Do you like it?" Sloan's voice floated from the kitchen. She appeared with a mug of tea and that same effortless smile. "It feels lighter now, don't you think?" I swallowed the knot in my throat. "Where are my pictures?" "Oh, I packed them away," she said, as if doing me a favor. "They were dated, and the frames didn't match. I'm reworking the space. Buyers love clean lines." "Buyers?" I repeated, the word catching like a splinter. She froze for half a second, just long enough to confirm what I already felt. Then she laughed it off. "Figure of speech. You know me. Always planning ahead." Her charm felt thinner than the curtains she'd hung. I went upstairs, needing air. needing something familiar. But my room didn't look the same either. My quilt, the one I'd sewn with Ethan's baby clothes, was gone, replaced with a gray comforter. On the nightstand, the framed picture of my late husband had vanished. Only a faint ring of dust marked where it used to sit. I found the quilt in a storage bin in the hallway closet, folded carelessly beside my old journals. And then I saw it. The wooden box that held my keepsakes. The latch was snapped. Inside, things were missing. Ethan's first crayon drawing. The tiny hospital bracelet from when he was born. My husband's navy pin. Gone. My hands shook as I reached for the box. A loose photograph fluttered out. Ethan, 5 years old, standing on the porch with his arm around me. Both of us laughing at something I can't remember. That photo should have been in the frame by my bed. Now it was bent, creased across our faces. I sat down on the edge of the bed, clutching it to my chest. For the first time, the quiet in the house felt dangerous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I heard muffled voices downstairs, Sloane talking to someone on speakerphone. The words drifted up, sharp and careless. She's sentimental, that's all. Once she's settled somewhere else, we'll list it. We can stage the photos later. List it. She said list it. The next morning, I went straight to May's house. I didn't even bother with makeup or breakfast. May opened the door before I could knock twice. One look at me and she knew something was wrong. "They've been moving things," I said, setting the photo on her kitchen table. And I heard her talking about listing my home. May frowned, pulling her glasses down to the tip of her nose. "You need to talk to someone. Nora. A lawyer. Before this gets ugly." I looked at the bent photo again, the crease running right through my son's smile. For the first time in months, I didn't feel old or tired. I felt awake, and beneath that sudden clarity was something else I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Quiet, steady anger. Part 3, lines crossed. 605 words. May didn't waste time. That same afternoon, she drove me to a law office near the courthouse downtown. The brass letters on the door read, Daniel Reyes, attorney at law. The waiting room smelled like coffee and photocopy ink, the scent of people trying to hold on to what's theirs. Mr. Reyes was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, sharp suit but kind eyes. He listened quietly while I explained what had been happening, the missing items, the talk about selling, the way Sloane controlled the bills. I expected disbelief, maybe pity, but instead he nodded like he'd heard this story before. "Miss Whitaker," he said finally, "if you haven't signed any power of attorney, the house and finances are still entirely in your control. Do not sign anything without me reviewing it first. And if you suspect manipulation, you're allowed to record your own conversations under Ohio's one-party consent law." The words hit me like a small light turning on in a dark room. Legal, calm, rational. He gave me language for what my gut already knew. I wasn't losing my mind. I was being managed. That night, I cooked dinner, chicken pot pie, Ethan's childhood favorite. I set the table like I always did, pretending everything was normal. When Sloane came in, she looked surprised to see the food ready. "Smells great," she said, setting her purse down. "Listen, we need to go over some paperwork tonight, just a few financial things." Paperwork. My stomach turned, but I smiled. Of course. After dinner, she spread out a neat stack of documents on the table. The top page had my name typed in bold across the header, Durable Power of Attorney. She spoke in that soothing tone people use with children. It just lets Ethan and me handle small details, bills, property taxes, insurance. You'll still make all the big decisions. I took the first page, pretending to read, though my eyes barely focused. The words blurred, but one line jumped out. Full authority to manage. Sell or transfer assets. I lifted my gaze. You said small details. That's standard language, she replied too quickly. Don't overthink it. Nora. Before I could respond, Ethan walked in from the living room, rubbing the back of his neck. It's just easier this way. Mom, you've done so much already. Let us help for once. Help. That word again, hollow as a prayer said without faith. I pushed the papers back toward them. I'll have my attorney review these first. Sloane's smile faltered for the first time. Attorney? Daniel Reyes, I said, steady. He's good with elder law. For a heartbeat, silence filled the room. Then she forced a laugh, brittle and sharp. You think we'd hurt you? We're family. Exactly, I said, standing. That's why I'm sure you'll understand. That night, I poured myself a cup of tea before bed. The taste was wrong, bitter, chemical. I poured it down the sink and watched the swirl of dark liquid disappear down the drain. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to warn me. The next morning, I scheduled another meeting with Mr. Reyes. I told him everything, the papers, the tea, the overheard phone calls. He didn't look surprised. It's time to document, he said. Every conversation, every change. I'll connect you with a licensed private investigator who can install visible cameras and capture anything suspicious. He leaned forward, his voice low but firm. You're not powerless, Mrs. Whitaker. They just think you are. As I left his office, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear this time, but purpose. For months, I'd been treated like a fragile woman fading into the background. Now I knew better. If they wanted a story about an old lady losing control, I'd let them write it. And when they finished, I'd take back the pen. Part 4, The Breaking Point, 505 words. 2 mornings later. I came home from the grocery store with a paper bag full of oranges and bread, only to find the key refusing to turn again. At first, I thought maybe I'd twisted it wrong, but the lock gleamed silver, brand new. My stomach dropped. I knocked. No answer. The curtains were drawn tight. I tried calling Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed, a text from Sloane. Please don't get upset. The locksmith had to update the system for safety reasons. We'll explain when you're calm. When I'm calm. The words burned like acid. I stood on that porch for a long time, my breath fogging the glass, seeing only my reflection staring back at me. Eventually, I drove to May's house, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. She opened the door before I could speak. They changed the locks, didn't they? I nodded. The groceries sagged in my arms like dead weight. May took them, set them on her counter, and said quietly, "It's time." Nora. By evening, Mr. Reyes had filed a preliminary report for elder abuse and unauthorized access. He told me to keep a record of every message, every word. Stay calm, he said. Don't confront them yet. Let them talk first. That night, I sat awake replaying Sloane's voice in my head, that soft condescension she'd perfected. We'll explain when you're calm. Maybe that was when the idea came. If they wanted to think I was losing my mind, maybe I could use that. People underestimate what they think is broken. The next day, I went back to the house. Sloane opened the door wearing a rehearsed look of sympathy. Nora, you scared us. You shouldn't be wandering around alone like that. I forgot, I said, letting my eyes dart around like I'd misplaced a thought. The key didn't fit. Silly me. She softened instantly, the way you would with a child. It's okay. Let's get you inside. Her pity made me want to scream, but I swallowed it down. I needed her guard down. That evening, I pretended to doze off in the armchair while she spoke on the phone in the kitchen. My phone, resting on the side table, recorded every word. "He won't wait forever," she whispered. "The buyer wants it listed this week. If she changes her mind, we'll lose the deposit." Pause. Then Ethan's voice, low and weary. "I just want it over. Sloan." The recording captured everything: the greed, the fatigue, the betrayal. Later, in May's living room, I listened to it again, every syllable steady and damning. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't paranoid or confused. They had crossed the line. For months, I'd been fading into the background, letting them handle things. But now, as I sat in that quiet room with May's clock ticking in the corner, I felt sharper than I had in years. I was done being managed, and the next move would be mine. Nished. I'd take back the pen. Part 5, The Reckoning and Resolution. 2 words. The day I decided to take my house back, the sky was gray and swollen with rain. It felt like the weather knew what was coming, like even the clouds were waiting to see how this would end. I stood at the curb with Mr. Reyes beside me, his briefcase tucked close under one arm, his shoes already damp from the puddles. Behind us, Officer Jenkins waited in his patrol car, wipers moving in slow, steady arcs. "Are you ready, Mrs. Whitaker?" Mr. Reyes asked. I took a deep breath, the air sharp with rain and nerves. I've been ready for a long time. The walk up the driveway felt longer than usual. Every step reminded me of something I'd once painted, fixed, planted with my own hands. This wasn't just wood and walls. It was 40 years of living. I wasn't walking toward a confrontation. I was walking toward myself. When the door opened, Sloan filled the frame like a guard at a gate she didn't own. "Nora, what are you doing here?" she said, her voice a practiced mix of surprise and irritation. "I'm home," I answered simply. Ethan stood behind her, his expression pale, eyes shifting between us. He looked like a man who'd lost control of the story he helped write. Mr. Reyes stepped forward, calm but firm. "Mrs. Whitaker has filed for a temporary restraining order and submitted evidence of fraudulent activity. You're both required to vacate the premises until the court reviews the case." Sloan laughed, brittle and sharp. "You can't prove anything." "Yes, I can," I said, pulling my phone from my coat pocket. I pressed play, and her voice poured into the air, cold and clear. "She's sentimental, that's all. Once she's out, we'll list it." Ethan's head dropped, then his own voice followed, tired and small. "I just want it over." Silence swallowed the room. The sound of rain on the roof filled the gaps between breaths. "You recorded us?" Sloan spat. "In my house," I said. "Yes." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Officer Jenkins stepped forward, his voice steady. "Ma'am, I'll need you to hand over the keys." Sloan's defiance flickered, then collapsed. She dug through her purse, metal clinking softly before the keys dropped into his hand. Ethan finally looked at me. His lips trembled before he spoke. "Mom, I never wanted to hurt you. I wanted to believe him. A part of me still did." "You did," I said quietly. "But you can still learn from it." He nodded, tears forming in his eyes, and for the first time in months, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who used to run down this hallway laughing, not hiding lies behind closed doors. When they were gone, the house felt different, hollow, but free. The kind of silence that follows a storm, when everything broken finally stops shaking. In the weeks that followed, the evidence spoke for itself. Sloan and Ethan faced charges for fraud and elder financial abuse. I didn't attend every hearing, I didn't need to. The truth didn't need my presence. It already had my voice. By summer, I moved into a smaller place near Highbanks Park. The air smelled of pine and possibility. May helped me unpack, humming softly while the afternoon light slid across the floor. My old rocking chair sat by the window, newly painted white. On the wall above it hung a single photograph, Ethan at 5 years old, missing a front tooth, grinning wide. The edges were worn, but I didn't replace it. Some scars don't need fixing. Every evening, I sit there, watching the trees shift in the wind. The house creaks sometimes, a soft memory of what used to be. I breathe in the quiet and feel something close to peace. I lost a son that day, at least the version of him I thought I knew. But I found something else, something harder to keep and harder to steal. My dignity, my home, myself. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.